Okay, it's 10:45. I'll go ahead and get started. Appreciate the audience that we have here. So my name's Captain Logan Medica, U.S. Coast Guard. I'm the director of the Persistent Cyber Training Environment. Been assigned to Cybercom since about August of 2023. Prior to that, I spent about 10 years with the National Security Agency and other intelligence organizations. Started out in the Coast Guard driving ships and then decided to change at the lieutenant level. So that's kind of my background. I am not a cyber operator by trade, but I am a signals analyst is my background, as I mentioned before. So this presentation is really just kind of set up to tell you a little bit about what PCTE is, what we do, how we do it, and what the applicability is to the Joint Cyber Forces. So what is PCTE? Well, it's our primary training platform that exists at all classifications. So at the unclassified level, the secret level, and the top secret level, and it allows us to do realistic training, whether it's traffic generation. It also allows us to do collective training as well as large-scale exercises. To give you some examples of that, we just finished up Cyber Shield, Cyber Yankee, Eager Lion, as well as Cyber Flag. It also allows the forces to do mission rehearsals, so that's taking a look at what we learn about our adversaries and then putting that on the network or trying to recreate that so they can do their mission rehearsals. And then, as I've kind of mentioned, the multinational collaboration. Obviously, for a lot of those exercises, we're bringing partners on the range. So at the highest levels, those are the four pillars that the PCT is able to support. How is the enterprise managed? So here with this triangle, you can see you got the persistent cyber training environment is in the middle. And then we get our requirements are run by the Army Futures Command, the Army Capabilities Manager. Cyber works with the Joint Force on the requirements piece, and they have transitioned to what we know, what is known as capability needs statements, and that's what we drive towards. On the material and the software side, we work with the Army's Program Executive Office, STRI for instrumentation. I always forget the STRI part. The simulation training and instrumentation. Yep. So they are the material developers. They are the owners of the Cyber Trident contract. And so we have a tight relationship working with them. And then, of course, Cyber Command and then PCT in the center there. That's just a coordinating entity, if you will, amongst the triangle. As we move over to the right-hand side, obviously we work with the cyber components, again, through that Army ACM, working with them on the from a requirement standpoint, but also from a user perspective, improving the user experience, and we do that through our user-focused sprints that we run down in Orlando. The combatant commands are on there because obviously when they want to execute bilats or various exercises and they want to use the range for that, we facilitate that. As I just mentioned, we just did one for CENTCOM using Eager Lion, which is aligned under Army Cyber. And then I got a few others that are up there as well. Cyber training, executive agents. So we are in the process, Cybercom is in the process of taking over to be the executive agent for cyber training range. And so we look forward to that. That's working its way up through the commander. And that'll put us in the driver's seat to designate ranges and also kind of look out across and take a good inventory of all the ranges that exist within the U.S. government, which there are many. And if the PCT cannot service that, we can off-ramp or offload to a particular range that may have that capability. It'll also help us spend our money more efficiently. We should not be spending money on things that already exist out there. Instead, just leverage those. And then you also see we have the JCTE Ops Group. That's right now. Our cyber has that responsibility, and they're responsible for the training, the synchronization, and servicing the needs of the joint cyberspace forces in running the PCTE. Where are we located? So this is just kind of a map of where the hardware is. The green boxes represent where all of our unclassified servers are. The ones in gold are the TS instantiations, of which we have 2, and then our secret instantiation that we have is over in Australia, so we're partnered with them, and we expect our Five Eyes partnerships to expand. We're in dialogue with the United Kingdom, New Zealand, and Canada for their expansion. Okay, so I just thought I'd talk a little bit about increasing capacity and capability. So right now we have about 12,000 users on the platform at any one time. We're splitting that between the various RCSs. We manage those resources. You see up there on the first bullet, support 12,000 plus ECS and RCS. That stands for Enterprise Compute and Store and Regional Compute and Store. Enterprise is what our newest on-prem server is. That's going to be down in Orlando. It is providing 2.3 times the capacity of a legacy RCS. Again, we're hosting schoolhouse training content on there. We're also in dialogue with the Army to transition their schoolhouse onto PCTE. And then we also have our JQRs, or what I like to call content aligned to joint qualification requirements for the joint force. Individual training support. So again, it might be that you're deficient in a particular area after you complete your JQRs, or maybe you struggled in an area. You have the ability to go in there and do some proficiency training or reinforcement training. And what we have is CyberGym activities that are loaded on there. And then the big thing that we're really pushing hard on is to make sure that we have our content aligned to the Cybercom minimum JQR standards. So I have up there listed, we have host analysts and network analysts coming online at the basic and senior level, as well as we expect to deliver network technician, data engineer, and analytics support officer in the near future, probably coming towards the end of the year. So when we talk about the individual collective exercises, this is just kind of a snapshot of you can do live action events. So just think about, kind of red versus blue, your traditional training there, or we can also do hardware in the loop. We can a lot of the services have their kits. We're in the process of buying down some additional capabilities through a vendor where we're going to have some telematics, ship navigation systems, as well as building management and building surveillance that we can wire up. So that's for the live action events. And then we also have the structured content. So there's different courses that you can take. We have the HAPE device if you need to learn about that. We have a content for that. CyberGym activities, which includes a whole host of app cards. And so what does it look like when you log into the PCTE? So this is just a snapshot of some of the training that we have. On this one's located on RCS 00, and you can just kind of look across the titles. We have ICS SCADA, as well as other app cards that you can light off and get after that structured content that's on the range. And this is obviously a snapshot of the unclassified system. Okay, how is PCT operated? So I talked about our cyber right now is providing us with the operations group, which includes 7 full-time individuals, 2 civilians, and 5 military for our cyber, and the balance is then managed with the request for forces that the components provide, which is 14 to run the range. We are going to be standing up, we have approval for 31 billets that were approved by the Deputy Secretary of Defense, and we will be able to eventually relieve Army from having to perform the operations group function, and that'll wholly reside within Cybercom's J7. But you can kind of see they do the platform support. We're expanding the help desk. It says 16.7. We just got a contract awarded. We're going to be going to 24/7 operations. They do the account management. They bring our foreign partners on the range after they've been through a vetting process, and then they off-ramp them. They also do event support, so making sure that we have enough resources to support CyberFlag, CyberShield, and those large-scale exercises where we might have up to 800 people doing live action events. They're also working on the content management, so just making sure that content management that we do put on the range is meeting minimum standards if it's at the what I call the service level. And then as we work, we're also working on what those content standards are for the things that are more applicable across the joint force, making sure that they're compliant with the DoD's automated distributed learning, Americans with Disability Acts, and so forth. So that's content management. When we talk about mission rehearsal, again, part of our contract expansion that goes along with expanding the help desk operations is also providing that customization. So if you need to do a mission rehearsal, we're taking a look at what exactly do you need, what's the cyber terrain look like, then we have support that can recreate that environment at a higher classification level so that they can rehearse their mission prior to going ahead. So I need to update this slide a little bit because I said the way ahead is that help desk capacity. That contract was awarded last Friday, and then Also for the content delivery cell, really what we're talking about there is what I mentioned previously. That's doing that customization of what the user needs in order to be successful in their mission space, providing those white glove service or custom builds for the Joint Force. This is just kind of a common operating picture that we have a JTIMS meeting every 2 weeks. We just kind of take a look at, okay, where are we at with utilization and usage? We're checking our VMwares to make sure that somebody hasn't spun up too much and that we're not getting towards our capacity limits. So I just thought I would share that with you. It shows a little bit of kind of what the top hits are. So if you look in the on the right-hand side of the slide, you can look at what were the top things for the past 90 days that the Joint Force was hitting on the range. Okay, so what's kind of the way forward for PCTE? We're in the process of, I call it PCTE 2.0 roadmap, where we're working on some structure changes to how the persistent cyber training environment is managed. We're focusing on making sure that the range is stable and available. It has availability. It's resilient. We do have some hiccups when we have large-scale exercises, and that obviously hinders our performance in those exercises. We're also working on those content standards that I talked about earlier, right? There's going to be tactical level standards where you, as a service, whether it's Air Force, Navy, Marines, you're doing a mission rehearsal for a particular thing that a CPT is going to go out and do. That's a very tactical level that applies to that particular unit. So making sure that they're meeting the minimum content standards, but also, as I talked about, is when we're building content that aligns to the Cybercom JQR, that's a requirement when the forces are presented, making sure that meets those higher level standards as ADL, CMI-5, API, so forth and so forth, all of which is part of that DoD's automated distributive learning requirements. We're bringing on some capabilities, hack-the-box, immersive labs. Really, what's the difference there? Do you like Ford or do you like Chevy? It's really kind of user preference, right? But we're going to have licenses that are anonymized that the force can use to help them. We talked about the cyber physical test beds. I kind of mentioned that earlier. There's 4 capabilities that we're bringing online through a vendor that will allow us to do hardware in the loop or standalone. We'll have some pre-built scenarios in there so that we can work with a wide variety of customers, whether it's at the higher end or at the lower end of their cyber capabilities. And then we are also working with the PEO on some cloud pilots. So we're taking a look at a couple of cloud vendors that we're working with to take a look at, what that would look like, what the costing is, what the scalability of it is, and so forth. So that's just kind of what you can expect on the way forward from PCTE. So when we talk about our program partners, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I believe some of you were here earlier. You got to see what the JICWA integration, but this just kind of talks about we are part of the Joint Cyber Warfare Architecture Integration. Again, there was a presentation that a deep dive on this earlier in the TechNet, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. This is kind of what our roadmap looks like and what our versions that we're rolling out. And so one of the things I'm excited about, I think, is version 9.0 is when we're going to have our Netflix-like presentation layer, which is essentially the ability to go into the range, similar to Netflix. If you're looking for thrillers, actions, or whatever, if you have a particular work role that you're interested in, you'll be able to go in there and discover the content that's needed. This is necessary because right now it's a bit archaic. It's a naming conventions. Is it shareable and so forth? This is going to kind of eliminate some of the confusion of what is exactly out there on the range. It'll be all the content will be data tagged. It'll talk to that Netflix presentation layer because you'll have the ability to potentially leverage a scenario that some other service or some other entity had built for an exercise you need to do or a bilat that you need to execute or you need it for your own mission rehearsals that you're doing in a CPT environment or what have you. So we're looking forward to that. We do use the agile development process that PEO STRI runs. So we do use the agile, which of course means we go down to Orlando quite a bit, which is where PEO STRI is located as we do these sprints on the dev side. Is there anything else missing there, Nate, that you would want to add?
Is this working? Did it work? I turned it off. All right, cool. So, one of the things that I think is important to talk about here is with the Netflix-like presentation layer he's talking about, currently we have many different RCSs and ECSs. So their content is you have to log into each one individually. So one of the things that this will really get after is allowing one pane of glass for the user to go and get to everything. So I think that's going to be a really, really useful piece coming forward.
Yeah, so discovery of content's kind of challenging, but that's going to be relieved soon. I'll give you an example of that. I have a Navy warrant that works with me, and we had a request from a service to execute a BILAT, and a little bit of stress because we're going to have to create the content from scratch. But this warrant officer was able to tell us, no, you don't. We have that in the Navy. I know exactly where it's sitting on the range. And, the question from the ops group was, well, how did we not know that? So it's not their fault. It's just that the range developed without a lot of, it was just, let's get people on a range and start operating. And some of these things are kind of afterthoughts to make it better. So one of the things that we are working on, I'll just kind of transition to the next slide here. When I talk about PCTE challenge and vulnerabilities, right? So one of the things that hurts us, continuing resolutions, right? So since, 2000, we've had maybe 4, maybe 5 budgets passed, so the tech debt stacks up, and it becomes very, very difficult to do the recaps and do the developments and the changes that we need. So thankfully, we got a budget this year. We're going to recap some of our legacy RCSs that we have. The other thing is, as that tech debt stacks up, again, getting the budget to be able to service that. So what we are focused on for FY25 is, for our capability need statements, is we're looking backwards, meaning that we are not bringing any new features. We have a lot of great features on the range, and we just need to improve those. And that's really driven by the users. There's tweaks that need to be made. Something hasn't functioned the way it was intended to do. And so for FY25, again, no new capabilities per se, but what we are doing is looking backwards and improving on all the capabilities that we have. I have on there ability to support the combatant commands because our limitation is really kind of our people and our personnel. That's going to be a little bit alleviated with the task order expansion that we got with that help desk operations, that enterprise delivery, or enterprise content delivery cell, which will be able to do some of that custom work as we bring more workforce on to be able to service what their needs are. Enhanced budget control, I just thought I'd kind of talk about that a little bit. So I'm huge on let's not buy any capabilities that already exist. So for those of you that are interested in ICS SCADA, if you haven't been to Idaho National Labs, I would recommend that you go. They have some great capabilities up there. Let's leverage that until we're told that they have no more capacity, and maybe we'll look at doing that. So enhanced budget control will also allow Cyber Command to take a look at, all right, if I'm providing to you host analyst and network analyst content that's 100% aligned, service agnostic to the Cybercom JQR, why are you, X-Service, building the same thing? Instead, you should just be building what your service requirements are that aren't covered by the Cybercom JQR. So just making sure that they're spending their money wisely and that we're not duplicating. I spoke a little bit about executive agent for cyber training ranges. Again, that'll allow us to self-designate that PCT is a designated range. And then also maintain the catalog of ranges that exist out there. I've mentioned Idaho National Labs. There's the National Cyber Range. Look, there's a plethora of ranges out there. I have a what we call a baseball card deck at my desktop, and if the PCTE can't service the ask from a particular customer, we'll have the ability to work with other vendors that are out there that have the capabilities needed to service the requirement. And that's when I kind of like to end with this, is that a PCT is not going to be all things to all people. But what we are going to do is try to find you the solution that you need to get after your training needs of your cyberspace forces. Gave you a couple of examples of that already. So with that, I think that's my last item. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Nate? So Nate is with the PEO. Yeah, he is forward deployed into our office in the J7.
One of the other things that, like what Captain Medika was just saying, is interacting with all the other ranges out there is really important for everybody to be able to share content and everything. But a lot of the service cyber components are building content on PCTE, which is awesome, and we need to be able to leverage that for, if Air Force builds it, then Army can use it. And so that we're getting a better return on investment for all of the content that's out there that everybody's paying tax dollars are going towards.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's part of the contract expansion that was awarded last Friday, is to do a robust content inventory, get a good handle of what's out there on the range. Obviously, we can see everything because we own the range, as opposed to sometimes some of the services don't make it shareable, and then also deleting content that's obsolete and no longer necessary. Again, it's about creating discovery and availability to the joint force so that we're not spending extra time. And one other highlight I'd like to point out, too, is that when we talk about kind of doing these custom builds, so right now the way it works, if mission rehearsal needs to happen, they're taking their senior operators and having to build in, this is my terms, stand up the range, build the environment, and then tear it down when they're done. And so by providing a forward deployed element or expert that can say, okay, what are your range requirements? What's the mission rehearsal? They can do that for them and keep those senior operators on keyboard or mentoring the junior folks that are out there. And I see a few of them standing in the audience today. So, okay, with that, I'm happy to take your questions. Yes.
Yes, sir. So, has your team looked at training for EW for our 17 Echo soldiers and how we identify vulnerabilities in the EMS, looking at RF, just any type of EW curriculum or courses that you guys offer?
So we don't have anything specifically for that. I know there has been some conversation about doing some stuff with hardware in the loop. So hardware in the loop provides us a way to interconnect something that's out in the physical world to one of our ranges. So if that is, if they can essentially plug it into an IP or something else, then you can pivot that back in and do some training that way.
Okay, great question. Thanks.
Morning. Years ago, there was talk about having a traditional, like an LMS, included into PCTE. I know there's training modules, videos, gunnery tables, things like that. Was that ever added to add a synchronous type training environment so an instructor can lead an actual course of students from various locations throughout the country?
So we have a little bit of that. We're actually increasing the capabilities in the LMS, but there is, like Captain Medika mentioned, there is quite a bit of school content where there are instructors running through the courseware with the students.
Anybody else?
It's me again. Is there a plan to go away from the RCS model into a more cloud-based environment to avoid having to refresh those RCSs and pay those millions of dollars?
There is, yes. We have a cloud pilot that's just kicking off, and we're looking at a couple different options. Okay. Oh, here.
Good morning, sir.
Morning.
I heard that PCT 2.0 also came with potentially some modernized attack chains and scenarios. I just know that a lot of the operators, eventually, they go through them all and they've seen a good few of them, and it's it's Jake Potts, it's him. So could you expand on kind of the PCT 2.0 as far as potentially like RCP events? And any modernizations there? Yeah,
I would say first and foremost for 2.0 is really the governance and the standards of putting stuff on the range. But Nate, do you want to attack that?
Yeah, so there has been some additions to the active, like the red teaming perspective. So when a defender goes through the network, if you don't have a red team there to do the actions, you want to have some sort of automated piece to that. So there has been some additions, and there's a whole catalog of opportunities that have been provided from one of our vendors to get after that. So if you've got Leviathan or whatever the team is, or the threat is, then you could have it automatically play through some of that and allow us to do a little bit of purple teaming type of deal. So yes, there is more and more of that coming constantly.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else? Hey, thanks for your attendance. I appreciate it very much.